Hey everyone, big updates came to Raceroom last week, and that's mostly in the graphical area. Raceroom has finally added Vulkan and a new lookup table system for the colors, and this drastically improves the rendering quality and makes the game feel a lot more realistic. So let's see the difference between the old and the new update. So here we are, we're at the Nürburgring GP in my favorite race car ever, the 2016 BMW M4 DTM car. Now this car, it's loud, it's mean, and it's a giant beast, making GT3 cars look tame and the grocery go-getter in comparison. Right now we're going to be looking at the old graphics, and one of my gripes is that it had an odd yellow-green tint to it, and it really looked a bit static with no depth to it. The shadows were very static also, and didn't really change. There was no reflections, and the shadows again looked very off. Now let's look at it with the new update. The first thing you'll notice is the colors look much richer, but still natural looking. There is more depth to the track now with improvements to the color and shadow rendering, making things look more dynamic and realistic. The sky now looks more realistic, and it really affects how the lighting looks on the car and on the track. You can change how the clouds look in the sim from clear skies to dark and gloomy, but you still don't have dynamic weather like in other sims. Going back to the graphics, seeing the car from the outside, you can see the massive improvements to the graphics and the light reflection on the car. But before, there didn't really seem to be any changes, but now, as the light moves around, the reflections change too, and this really brought new life into an 11-year-old sim. Not only did we get a graphical update, but we also got a new car pack, the 1995 DTM Pack. And if you didn't know DTM before they switched to GT3 cars, they used to be the pinnacle of GT cars. They had active aero, traction control, active ballast control. The sky was the limit with these cars, and manufacturers would often innovate as much as they could with the barely there regulations. So now, in this pack, we're going to get the Opel Calibra and the Alfa Romeo 155 to take on the already in-game Mercedes C-Class. Now let's take a look at the 95 Mercedes DTM car. Now this is a car that defined an era in motorsports, and calling this car a monster is an understatement. It's loud, it's angry, and when you drive it, it feels like it has a soul. And under the hood of this beast is a 2.5 liter V6 engine, churning out around 500 horsepower. That's right, 500 horsepower. That's pushing this rear-wheel drive masterpiece to its absolute limits. And am I driving like a hooligan in this video? Yeah, and I know it's not the fastest way, but who cares when you're having so much fun driving this car? This car is not just about winning races, it's about the raw thrill of driving this thing. Now speaking of victory, this is the car that Bernd Schneider used to win the 1995 DTM Championship car. Alfa Romeo has a long history in motorsports, and in the 90s, they participated in the DTM, and in 95, they had the Alfa Romeo 155 V6. So just like the Mercedes, they had a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated V6 that pumped out nearly 500 horsepower. But here's where things got interesting. It sent all of that power to all four wheels. That's right, the Alfa was an all-wheel drive car compared to its competitors, which were rear-wheel driven cars with the Mercedes and the Opel. And this all-wheel drive system gave Alfa a serious edge over its competitors, where that made this car a lot easier to drive and a lot more stable, especially in tricky conditions, but it was held back by its mechanical struggles and the weight of the system that was added onto this car. And the one thing I really like about this car is its high-revving V6. It wasn't just powerful, it sounded incredible, just like a symphony of racing power. And combine that with this aggressive dynamics, this car is just beautiful to look at, just an amazing thing to hear, and really Raceroom captured that feel and brought it into the sim and did a really, really great job at it. The last car in this pack is the Opel Calibra V6 4x4 DTM car. Now this car, just like the Mercedes and the Alfa Romeo, had a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated V6 engine, but it only pumped out 450 horsepower, which is 50 less than what the Mercedes and the Alfa Romeo had. But just like the Alfa Romeo, it had an all-wheel drive system, meaning this car was really good to drive in rainy or tricky conditions, but because it had less power and with the weight of the all-wheel drive system, it wasn't really that big of a serious contender to the Mercedes or the Alfa Romeo. Which is a shame because this car is really fun to drive and we're actually driving it out on track. To me, it didn't really feel like an all-wheel drive car. It didn't feel understeery as you're braking and trying to go into the corners like you would feel with the Alfa Romeo. This car felt really nimble and light when you're driving around the track. But again, because of not having as much horsepower, it really wasn't a competitor for the other cars. But even had drivers like Keke Rosberg, who was an F1 world champion at that time, so he brought a lot of experience and speed. But again, because of reliability issues and the uncompetitiveness of the car, it wasn't really able to do much in 1995. But in 1996, as they evolved that car, it was actually able to win the 96 International Touring Car Championship, which is kind of like a sister series to DTM back in the day. So that's it for the new update for Raceroom. I've really enjoyed this new graphical update, and I really like this new 1995 DTM pack. I think it's brought brand new life into an 11-year-old sim, especially in the graphics where they've now brought in the new Vulcan system to bring this game more and more and modernize it and give us a lot more dynamic coloring and shading and graphics to what I thought was really missing out of this title. And again, I think this title is one of the most underrated sims out there because it's got great audio, it's got good force feedback, and it's got really good door-to-door driving with its netcode system. And I wish more people would try it out. Now with the DTM cars, all three of them are very fun cars to drive. And especially for me, it's that Mercedes DTM car. That thing is just a beast and a monster. And I found myself, I only wanted to film like 15-20 minutes of footage for it. I ended up finding myself 2-3 hours later just still driving this car, and it was really hard to get out of the seat and not drive this thing anymore. So that's it from me. What did you guys think of this new Raceroom update? Did you enjoy the new graphics update? Did you enjoy the new 95 DTM car pack? I did. If you did, let me know down in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe. And until next time, have fun racing. Later.